introduction. As of course I realize that my Rotary connection is very antiquated, very old, and I had this very close association with the Rotary Club of Coimbatore West almost 35 years back. Women could only be Rotary hands, so it's already a dramatic change. Of course, 35 years, so the world has changed so much that I suppose today it's almost impossible to do something, and now we are debating about women entering Shani temples and the Supreme Court asking whether Mount Everest you will not allow a woman to climb and so on. So it's of course a new world, and very pleased to be back in the Rotary circles after such a long break. I have many stories to tell, but obviously time is short. One is about what we have done to the fisheries sector, marine fisheries sector, through our planning and development. The other story is about the community itself and its own internal dynamics and way of managing itself. And all these are associated with the larger problems that all of us are grappling the world over. Things like climate change, the global warming, sea level rise. So all these things are also connected with all these stories actually. They are all interlinked in many ways. But I will try to focus a little bit more on the community because I have worked so long with them, and I am sure that is one of the lesser known stories outside the limited circle of people who have worked with the fishing community. See, I'll give a brief synopsis of the fisheries development that has taken place in India, marine fisheries development. Marine fisheries, I'm sure all of us know, fisheries is one of the earliest professions. It's part of humankind's hunter-gatherer stage of evolution. In fact, it's an amazing thing that in today's modern world, post-capitalist world, post-modern, whatever you call it, this thing is still thriving. This business is still thriving. And the communities which have history of that kind of connection with that much antiquity are still thriving. So it's an amazing kind of a thing that which refuses to actually die away. Despite all the changes, despite all the modernity, while most other traditional occupations have actually withered away, especially from the hunter-gatherer stage of life. Now in India, we have certainly one of the oldest fisheries. And here in Tamil Nadu, we know that Sangam literature, which is the oldest literature that we have, which is on record. It is very clear that we have one of the 5 Thinais, Aindinai, Neidal. It's all about the fishing community, catching fish, making salt, selling it inland, and so on. So we have a very hoary tradition of fishing. And this long tradition of fishing, till independence, in fact till about 1960, it evolved almost on its own. There was very little of external intervention. At least in the Indian context, till the mid-60s, we did not have a single engine or motor fitted on a fishing boat. Maharashtra, the motorization or mechanization started in the mid-50s. Tamil Nadu, Kerala and the south, we had it only in the mid-60s. So you can imagine the long 5,000 years of history of fisheries, and it evolved entirely on its own. The British did not intervene too much, but during that period fisheries was taken cognizance. The Madras Fisheries Bureau was one of the first in Asia, and it is the result of the government having to take over, inheriting the pearl fishery, which was a major source of revenue for all those kings who ruled Madurai, from Madurai. So the pearl fishery was the trigger for the establishment of the Fisheries Bureau of Madras Presidency, which evolved to become the Fisheries Department of today. So there was not too much intervention. It was a sector that looked after itself. And if you look at the way and naturally all traditional occupations in India are caste-based. And marine fishing also you have specialist castes. So the 6,000 kilometer coastline of India, 9 maritime states, each maritime state you will have probably 3 or 4 major fishing castes involved in fishing. And unlike an agrarian system, where the modern, the caste system probably evolved more from the agrarian production system, where we have owners of land, you have those who lease and actually manage and run the land, and those who actually work them, and a whole sort of service providers, including religious service providers, all linked to each other into an agrarian economic system and in a ritual hierarchy. This is how the broad system has emerged. The tribes were totally out of the system, and that's why they are tribes. They are non-caste. These fishermen are somewhere in between tribes and agrarian castes. They have linkage. Those tribes historically did not, they were subsistence. They were not great producers who had to sell anything. So they lived their own lives. The fishermen, the caste system's importance or specificity because it's a specialized system. When I go to Southeast Asia, and some of you might have been, and you may see that South Asia, Southeast Asia, this whole organizing principle of society is totally different. There people are jack of all. Here we are specialists. The caste system and the specialization it brought is completely different there. There is nothing like a full-time fisherman. Most places the fisherman fishes for some time. He's got a plot of land, and when I went to Aceh after the tsunami, I found this guy or the family. The guy goes for fishing for many months in there. The lady takes care of the paddy field, and together they go and harvest some wild coffee up in the hills. So, and then they have milkfish aquaculture pond, all within a kilometer's distance. So they make their own boats, they build their own houses. Here, our fisherman will not build his own hut. The Dalits from the neighboring village, will come and build. Yeah? So we have, this is the specialization and mutual dependence that we have built up in our system. It's a very different kind of a social organization than that. One of the outcomes of that is that a fisherman, unlike a farmer can, if he is smart enough, grow all that he requires. He may only require to do a little bit of barter to get some of his necessities which he cannot produce on his own. A fisherman, all that he has is fish, and he cannot survive only on fish. So he has to market. So these guys have been market oriented right from centuries, right from the millennia that we are talking about. And this is why this group and this occupation has still thrived. It's always been market oriented. You catch more than 2 fish, you have to sell. So they have been triggered. If you start looking at settlement patterns, we were wondering why there is very low, used to be very low density in the parkway districts, put the Ramnad for instance. It's very obvious. The hinterland was dry, there is not much prosperity. Who is going to eat your fish and pay for it? Once again, low density of population. Huge thriving populations near Chennai, Trivandrum, where there is a good market. So these guys are market oriented right from day one. So this makes them very different. So they had an exchange relationship with agrarian society and therefore got absorbed in the caste system. But the difference of the agrarian production system and the fisheries production system is fishermen do not have multiple castes within the fisheries sector and ownership, work, etc. based on different castes. It's a uni-caste fishing community in a village. It's normally a single caste settlement. The owner, the worker, all are from the same coast. So the social differences and social stratification typical of agrarian society is absent. So it is closer to a tribal society in its internal organization. So that's something which is fundamental. But unlike tribes who lived in splendid isolation, these guys heavily dependent on the market and the agrarian society to which they were linked. So I had 2 interesting examples I could see. Uveri in Tirunelveli district. Get an idea about how ancient the settlement is. The Nadar community, which is agrarian neighborhood village, it is called Nadar Uveri. You go to Andhra, southern Andhra, some of you, my friends with aquaculture background might have been there. You go to Nellore and Ongole, there will be there's this community called, our Patinavar fishermen have become Patapu. So there is a Palli group, they are called Pallis, and there is a Patapu. And there is a main agrarian village, Kottapalam something. So Kottapalam, Patapalam. Kottapalam, Pallipalam, which means the agrarian village came first and the fishing village came later. You can easily assume that. So the antiquity of some of our villages are really great, and these are single caste hamlet. So this creates a kind of a situation of, and they are seaward looking, and the landward part is only the market, which was mainly handled by the women. In fact, for very long, till about a couple of generations back, when I joined fisheries about 33 years, 35 years back, my seniors used to tell stories of the man knowing very little about the land. If he falls sick, the wife takes him to the doctor and explains everything to the doctor. She is more familiar with the land side, and this guy only knows about the sea. In fact, he is better off at sea. If he comes back home, he is a nuisance. So that's the basic kind of atmosphere in which a fishing village used to be there. So it's a completely a self-governed village community as the tribes. And this is something very important to understand, because post-independence, because of our, quite rightly perhaps, the constitution makers, the elite who modernized India, had strong reservations about caste-based organizations. And naturally a fishing village hamlet organization is a caste-based organization. So the reluctance to accept caste-based meant that we have systematically dismantled most of our self-governing pre-independence, pre-colonial systems. Maybe there is a good logic for it. I am not contesting it at all. But we may also have lost a lot with that. But two groups or a few groups which still retain huge autonomy and continue to live the way they live for long, in this larger new constitutional modern set of institution, one big group is the fishermen. And of course the tribes. The tribes have been recognized in constitution. The recent amendments to the Panchayat Raj Act gives specific now rights to the panchayats and the tribal groups. Their self-governance is now practically recognized. Now they run their own show. This is what is the important thing that we have realized, that the tribal society does not fit well with our modern institutions, and their own traditional ways of doing things are much better off, and it is better that we allow them the freedom to manage their own affairs. The fishermen have largely been ignored by constitution makers. They have fallen between many stools and they are not normally recognized. So we do not know what character they are. Even now you go to a Panchayat Raj institution, a Gram Panchayat, you will find a agrarian village and the fishing hamlet mixed up. Inevitably it is the farmers who call the shots, because they have a greater awareness of the world outside, they have greater leadership skills, they are more, let us say, mainstreamed into politics and modern institutions. These people still run their own show. So this is some of the clannish behavior of fishermen. Sometimes is often a problem for all others. They don't understand them and they think these guys are very, problematic characters. So this is something that, I will start off with. Now, it is in this kind of a background that the fisheries development and what has upset the system, I would like to share a little bit. So 1960s, 50s onward, we started the planning, rural development, all kinds of development, and a new nation with grand ambitions, backing modern technology, modern production systems. This became our key approach. Planning and technology. Dams became our new, temples of worship, according to Jawaharlal Nehru. So we really went full hog in trying to push Western technology and Western ways of doing things in a big way. It has probably, obviously there have been so many benefits coming out of that, one doesn't deny. But in many of the traditional sectors, the approach taken has backfired and has led to considerable kind of displacement and problems for most of the traditional communities. We know how it has affected the tribes. The fishermen were probably among the last to be really touched, because the sea still remains the last frontier. The forests were taken over by the British themselves, so it's not that it is the post-colonial era that their displacement and their marginalization started. It happened long back, and we continued that, and it's only in recent time it's been at least given an official recognition, but whether we have been able to change it is a question mark. So the increasing food production, improving the catch of from fish, getting better returns from the sea became the key goals of planning. And from 50s the program started and various technologies were introduced. It is largely a technological intervention with the aim that these guys without motor power are going very nearby. They cannot go far with rowing and sailing. And obviously there's plenty of fish out there and there's no way these guys can catch all the fish. So let us empower them literally with horsepower and let them go with motors and things like that and catch more fish. Let them have bigger nets, more efficient nets. So this is the key approach that was taken. And obviously all this required larger capital outlay. So a catamaran, which all of us know here, the 4 or 5 logs lashed together to go to the sea with a sail or with just rowing, obviously looks very primitive. So, and very small. So we need to give them something bigger, something more efficient, something that can catch more fish. Big leap in investment. So all these were conceived, and in the 60s we started promoting many of these new technologies. The community was not very receptive to some of these new changes. We have now recognized that it is not that they are backward in their thinking and they did not understand any of this or unwilling to change themselves. Because we now find that the fishermen are innovating themselves and moving forward, that there is no lack of innovation or lack of acceptance of their power to develop. What has happened is that the market at that time was weak. In the 50s and 60s it was still emerging. Today we have a fantastic network of roads, transport. Fish with ice can today go literally thousands of kilometers. It was not possible then. A good catch, price will crash. So the fisherman was struggling, not that he didn't get enough fish. He couldn't get a good price, he couldn't get a good income. He couldn't make a good living. So giving him an expensive thing to catch more fish didn't make too much of an attraction to him. So this resulted actually in the government bringing in outsiders into fishing. These guys are hidebound, they will not change. So they approached nearby other communities, gave them huge incentives, and you find that this led to new entrants into fishing with new technology. And the new technology could be operated without too much of traditional skills, which were passed on from your forefathers downwards. So you have a motor, you have everything, you have a simple operations manual, and you get a little bit of training, you are in business. So this is how the whole system started and led to a certain kind of a conflict between the newcomers and the fishermen, traditional fishermen and the newcomers. The other unfortunate part was the technology that clicked in India, so-called modern technology, is this trawling. Trawling is something, just a bag-shaped net which you drag on the bottom of the sea with a powerful engine, and it catches all that comes in the way. Originally it was mainly intended for the bottom species, mainly aimed at this shrimp, prawns, and it catches anything and everything that comes in the way. And it will also cut the nets that are stationary fishing gears that are used by the other fishermen. And contrary to the wisdom of the planners, the guy with the mechanized boat will go deep. This fellow was also found in the shallow waters, because the prawns are also found more in the shallow waters. And here, somewhere, the natural features of the sea and the fisheries scientific underpinnings, the science underpinning fisheries was completely ignored. First, fish is a finite resource, it is not an infinite resource. Perhaps we are catching only a small part of it, that's all. But it is a finite resource and we can certainly overexploit it. Second, the biggest concentration of the fish resource is near the shore, not in the deep sea. So, the conventional wisdom, which is more an agrarian rationality or a non-fishery rationality, is you guys are only going nearby, there must be plenty of fish in the deep, you are empowered to go deeper, you will catch more fish. It's not true. The deep sea is literally a barren area with only 1/10 of the productivity of the shallow waters. Basically, just as in agriculture, on land, you need photosynthesis for start of life. You need sunlight penetration. So only up to 50 meters depth, you can actually get sunlight penetration. And then the organisms start living. And so you have the vegetarian matter. So you have fishes which are vegetarian fishes. Talking about vegetarians here, and fisheries people not eating fish. But we have vegetarian fish and non-vegetarian fish. So of course the higher priced fishes are the non-vegetarian fish, the big predators, white fish. The small fellows are all browsing on vegetable matter, which are close to the shore. It's only the predators who can live in the deep. So actually, the Chennai or Tamil Nadu Katamaram fishermen going out in a loincloth actually was able to reach most of the important fishing grounds. There are people who are going for long distance fishing with sails. So we are talking of a productive area of maximum about 50 kilometers from the shore. 20 kilometers is really the maximum productive. You can go up to 50 kilometers, but there are fishermen who used to go even traditionally with sail 50 kilometers. So it is not as if our technology was inadequate. For the Maharashtra fishermen, Bombay, the edge of the shelf is 200 kilometers. For Chennai, it is only less than 50 kilometers. So we completely misunderstood the natural features, the capabilities of our fishermen, and how the technology they had developed was actually very fine-tuned to the thing, and it is only the lack of markets and certain kind of support that they were not able to catch more or thrive, and they were always poor, and with all the social ills that go with that. So this is the kind of thing where we went and introduced this technology, and it led to huge conflicts, outsider entry, subsequently a new class emerging from among the fishermen to become owners of this new set of thing, and a permanent two blocks in the fishery, mechanized fellows and traditional. This conflict it continues to rage across the coast on a day-to-day basis. Competition is very severe. Now at one level we have made major breakthroughs in production. Our catch in the last 50 years has gone up tenfold, because we are now intensively catching fish. We are going deeper also. Some of the rarer resources are also being caught. So that is obviously a great success. But we have considerably overexploited many of the near-shore resources. Many of the species which people used to depend on heavily, the small-scale fishermen, are now not to be seen. They are being substituted by new catches in new areas, or new species that are emerging, or species which were less in number now growing in large numbers. So today, I think those of you who eat fish and those of you who are from have a Kerala background know that suddenly all of a sudden matti is now becoming available. The number one fish caught in Tamil Nadu is matti, oil sardine. It is entirely a Kerala Karnataka fish, and now it has become the number one fish. We are catching 25% of our catch is this oil sardine, for which we don't even have ladies in Tamil Nadu who don't know how to prepare. The men also, sorry. So, it's amazing. So, if there is a shortage in Kerala, immediately we go there for a reasonable price, or it goes for a fish meal plant, which our friends in aquaculture immediately make use of. So, or the poultry people. So, the complete species combination has changed. So we call this in fisheries and many other biological ecologists fishing down the food chain. So the predators have gone, because the predators are large and valuable.